For years, my mom treated me like a servant because I looked like my biological father. Later, when he left me a sizable inheritance, she demanded a share, even though she made my life a living hell. I'm 21, and I've suffered the harshest punishment just for resembling my biological dad. I'm the result of my mom's infidelity. She was married to my stepdad for 10 years and had 3 daughters: Mindy, 26, Sissy, 24, and me, 21. My stepdad didn't know I wasn't his child. As I grew older and started looking more like my real father, he began to have doubts. My older sisters looked like my mom, so he never questioned their paternity. But once I grew up looking completely different, he did a paternity test for all 3 of us. Turns out only the eldest was biologically his. The DNA of the other 2 didn't match. That's when my mom admitted all 3 daughters had different fathers. My stepdad filed for divorce. He only paid child support for Mindy. My mom had to support Sissy and me on her own. She loved Mindy and Sissy because they looked like her, but she hated me because I became a living reminder of her infidelity. As a child, I didn't understand her anger. She was cheerful and caring with my sisters, but always irritated and cold toward me. I don't remember a single happy moment with my mom. The worst part was not knowing why she treated me like that. When I finally found out, it crushed me. Knowing the truth only made things worse. I went through an identity crisis and had to face the fact that my mother hated me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't even complain about her coldness. She used to say that Sissy's father and my father had abandoned us, but at least Sissy looked like her, which made it easier for her to care for her. I reminded her of my father, and she despised me for it. My mom and sisters manipulated me and blamed me for their problems. Mindy called herself the only legitimate daughter, insulted me, and blamed me for the divorce. Even Sissy mocked me, saying it was my fault the family fell apart because I looked like my dad. She said, "Why couldn't you just look like Mom?" Then Dad wouldn't have left us, as if I had a choice. I hated myself as a kid. I hated my blue eyes because Mom and my sisters had brown ones. I hated my nose, my lips, everything about my appearance. This went on for years. I hardly ever got new clothes. I wore Mindy and Sissy's hand-me-downs. I didn't get toys and wasn't allowed to play with others either. I was a free maid. I fetched water and food, washed their dishes, did their laundry, made their beds. The only good thing Mom did for me was send me to school. It was a regular public school, but at least she didn't take away my education. When I was 13, I ran away. But the police found me and brought me back. I told them I didn't want to go home, but they didn't care. Mom cried in front of them, saying she was a single mom raising 3 daughters, and I was just a jealous problem child. I listed all the things I went through, but they only asked one thing. "Did she hit you?" I said no, and they immediately lost interest. Mom said, "See? I told you. She's just jealous." I babysat neighbors' kids, mowed lawns, worked at a video store, anything to spend less time at home. Even poorly paid work was better than unpaid labor for my family. During that time, I started pushing back. I earned money, stopped tolerating the humiliation, bought my own food, and didn't eat at home. Life slowly improved. I could finally afford nicer clothes than my sisters. Sissy softened a bit, but Mindy kept bullying me. She tore my clothes, broke my makeup, threw away my stuff. I endured it in silence. I wanted to save up and escape, but my boss at the video store advised me to finish school so I could get a good job. He said his son worked in a recruiting firm and could help me land a sales job after graduation. So I focused. The day I graduated, I packed my things and left. I got a job in sales, started making money, and slowly built a life for myself. My mom kept trying to get me to move back. Not out of love, but for money. She said that instead of paying rent, I could just pay her and live with them. I laughed in her face. Living there for free was hell, and now she wanted me to pay for it? She must have been joking. I wanted to meet my real dad, but Mom refused to tell me anything. I asked Sissy if she knew who her dad was. She said Mom told her he didn't want anything to do with her, so it was better not to look for him. Mom told me the same thing. I started to suspect it wasn't true and kept pushing her. She wouldn't budge. 2 years ago, she was behind on mortgage payments and urgently needed money. She came to me for a loan. I said I'd only give it to her if she told me who my dad was. She gave me a name and nothing more. I demanded his address. She said he didn't want to see me, so there was no point. I refused to give her money until I got the full information. She finally gave me an address. He lived 30 hours away by car, or 2 connecting flights. I saved up, bought a ticket, went to the address, and it was fake. I came back furious, threatened legal action. She claimed she didn't want to give the real address because his family didn't know about me and my showing up would ruin his life. She tried to guilt me into thinking I was a homewrecker. After a long argument, she gave me a new address, 4 hours away. She kept insisting he'd ignore me. I didn't listen. I took a bus and went. When I met him, it was surreal. I didn't even have to say who I was. He looked at me and said, "Well, hello, my girl," and hugged me. It was the tightest, most genuine hug I'd ever gotten from anyone. Then I learned something that flipped my entire world. My dad had been paying child support all these years. Mom gave me a fake address on purpose so I wouldn't find out, and lied to both of us. She told my father I hated him and didn't want to meet. His family didn't even know I existed. He told me he's been married for 40 years, has 2 grown sons, and loves his wife deeply. He didn't want to destroy his marriage. Mom used that to blackmail him for money. He said we could see each other if I wanted, and he was willing to help me, but he didn't want his family to find out about me. I didn't like that. If he couldn't accept me openly, then what was the point? I stopped seeing him. He messaged a few times, but I never replied. Around 6 months ago, he showed up at my work. He apologized and said he wanted to make things right. I told him he didn't owe me anything. I'm not a child anymore. But he said that after meeting me, he couldn't keep living a lie. He told his family. His sons were fine with it. They had their own lives. But his wife was shocked, and they've been going to therapy. Then he handed me a document. The deed to a mansion. He said it was the only way he could even begin to make up for his absence. I asked if his family knew, and he said yes. He had already paid for his son's education, given his wife a house, and set up trust funds for them. The mansion was for me. I was stunned. I had no idea he was wealthy. I didn't want his money. If I had, I could have blackmailed him like my mom did for years. I told him everything I went through because I looked like him. He said, "I'm so sorry you had to endure all that." He had no idea. Mom fed him lies all along. He said he gave me the house to secure my future and because he felt responsible. I didn't tell anyone about the house. Lately I started thinking about college. I always wanted a degree but couldn't afford it. Now with the mansion I figured I could rent it out and use the money for school. That's when Mom found out about the house. She started chasing me, demanding a share. She claimed that because her marriage ended because of me, I owed her. When I refused, she threatened to sue, saying she had a right to my dad's assets. I have no clue how inheritance laws work, but I'm pretty sure she has no case. Still, you never know how the system works in the US. I can't afford a lawyer until I start getting rent, so if anyone out there knows about this, please help. Yeah, you can call me naive, but I really need advice. Thank you. I unloaded everything on her, all the pain, hate, and resentment that had built up over the years. It all came pouring out. They started crying, and I broke down too, but not because of them, because of everything I had to endure. They tried to comfort me, but I just told them to leave. They thought that once I let my emotions out, I'd give in and let them stay. But I just screamed, "Get out! I don't want to see you ever again." After they left, I felt so awful that I went to see a doctor the next day and spent a few days in bed. 3 days later, when I got bored, I decided to take a drive around town. Passing by my mom's place, I saw it was locked up, and their stuff was scattered out front. I know a girl who lives in their neighborhood, so I called her and asked what happened. She told me my mom had gotten into serious trouble. Turns out she had been sleeping with the landlord, and his wife found out. In a rage, the wife dragged my mom out by her hair and threw her out of the house. Apparently my mom hadn't paid rent in over a year. She was paying in her own way. It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone. I hate to say this because she's still my mother, but that woman is just... I don't even know what words to use. Some people might think this is all made up, that something like this can't be real. But trust me, not everyone has a normal family. There are families like mine. As I mentioned before, my dad took charge of finding a tenant for the mansion. With the rental income, I was able to enroll in college. Not the most prestigious one, but I'm proud of myself for getting to this point in life. In the meantime, my mom tried to seduce my biological father, but he kicked her out and threatened to call the police if she ever came near the mansion again. Since that last blowout, I haven't heard from her. That's when I got a message from someone. That's how I found out Mindy had abandoned my mom too. She got married to a man from the next neighborhood over. He's a widower with 2 kids, but he owns a large house and inherited property. Of course, Mom passed on her skills to Mindy. Well, good for them. Let them live their lives however they want. Now, on to the next story. A wife filed for divorce after 10 years of marriage and multiple affairs. Now she wants to come back, but I'm already building a relationship with another woman. My wife is 35, and I'm 38. We were married for 10 years and have 2 young school-age children. The first 7 years of our marriage were perfect, at least from my perspective. I couldn't have asked for a better wife or mother to our children. But the last 3 years got really tough. We went to therapy, tried to get our marriage back on track, but nothing worked. I planned dates, read, and listened to everything I could on improving relationships. It helped, but there was still a deep disconnect between us that I couldn't seem to bridge, no matter how hard I tried. Then, in the second half of last year, my wife unexpectedly filed for divorce. I was in love with her and devastated. I tried to talk her out of it. She wavered a bit, but in the end she was firm. I never got a clear answer as to why she wanted the divorce. I wasn't a perfect husband, sure. I had my flaws and could have been better. But I never cheated, never abused her, and I always supported the family. In the last few years, I was 100% committed to saving our marriage. Anyway, 1 month after filing for divorce, she was already seeing another man. A month later, she introduced him to our kids. Then, during discovery in the divorce proceedings, she admitted she'd had multiple affairs since year 7 of our marriage. One of them lasted over a year, though she claimed it was just a few encounters. I had no idea she was even capable of something like this. The level of deception was mind-blowing. The day I found out was one of the worst of my life, but at least it helped explain why we'd grown so distant in those final years. It wasn't that I didn't try. 6 months passed. I spent nearly $100,000 on legal fees, and then she decided she wanted to try to fix things. Oh, and she's still dating the same guy. But she says she'll leave him if I agree to give us another chance. What changed her mind? Maybe she found out I started seeing a wonderful woman. Or maybe she realized how much her finances would change once I was out of the picture. She claims it's because she saw what a great dad I've been when the kids stayed with me. I sat down with her and listened. I felt like it was the least I could do after 10 years of marriage. She took responsibility for her actions and gave what seemed like a sincere apology, though of course she tried to shift a little blame on me, saying I played a part in pushing her to that point. I understand every story has 2 sides, but I completely rejected the idea that I was responsible for her cheating. Still, I do believe she regrets what she did. In the end, I told her no, and continued with the divorce, which was finalized a few weeks ago. She hasn't given up. She keeps texting me almost every day, trying to convince me to give her a second chance. It hurts to see someone I loved so much going through pain and regret. But I'm standing firm because I don't think I could ever trust her again. Besides, I'm with an amazing woman now, beautiful inside and out, who's incredibly supportive of me. Just to be clear, we met after the divorce papers were finalized. As I write this, I realize how crazy it all sounds. Who in their right mind would try to save a marriage like that? Who would even dare to ask for a second chance? I don't love my ex anymore, but I loved her for so long. And with kids and shared custody, I'll never be fully rid of her. It's hard. I guess I'm writing this just to hear that I'm doing the right thing. Has anyone else been through something like this? Any advice? Well, let's check out the advice people gave the author. Your ex said she'd leave her lover only after you said yes? Why doesn't she get that you don't want to be a backup plan? Dude, she's selfish and spewing nonsense. You should be proud of yourself. You did everything you could, kept your dignity, made the right call, and still treat her with respect. You survived 2 major heartbreaks and came out whole. Why go through that pain and suffering again? You know if she cheated once and covered it up that well, she could do it again. And no, she doesn't want to fix things for you. She wants to fix things for herself. Walk away. Don't look back. Well, I completely agree with the commenters. Do you?